I want to pick up the story from life at Otago Uni. So you're in your third year of studying law, a budding musician, living in a flat with two of your best mates, one of whom has an incredible family estate in Gisborne, which you think could be an epic concert venue. So your mate's dad, Dean, flies you all out to check it out. Well, tries to fly you all out to check it out. So pick up the story from here.
So we had this idea to get all our mates together. We thought it would be the end of our lives leaving Otago. Oh, we'd never see these people again. We better have this big one.
As we walk on.
Exactly. The trouble is we haven't been able to get rid of each other. It's a small country. So we thought, let's get this party going to have our big final farewell and everyone can head off to the real world and do their own thing. So Tom and I put it on ourselves to think about a location. We thought about places like Wanaka, Nelson. I'm from Hawke's Bay. And then Andrew, my flatmate at the time, on his wall he had a photo of the amphitheatre that his dad had created in Gisborne. And Andrew's a pretty enthusiastic entrepreneur himself. And he said, write to Dean. Dean will get right behind it. So
Dean being his dad.
Dean being his father. So we try to sell him on the premise that, we'd all buy his wine and help promote the venue. But Dean saw the vision as well. And next thing you know, we're up on a plane to Gisborne in the middle of winter. So this is 6 months out from New Year's with this opportunity to pitch to Dean about our idea. We still didn't have a name. We didn't know first steps with, getting funding or how we would go about it. But on that flight to Gisborne, we came up with the name Rhythm and Vines through working through some concepts of music and the location. And
it's amazing what a hangover can do for the creative juices. Because did you miss the original flight that was booked?
We did, and Andrew was very generous. He'd bought those flights for us to Gisborne. It was after one of those infamous nights at the Captain Cook Hotel. So I remember going around to Tom's, shaking him out of bed. We made our way to that airport in Dunedin, which is miles out of town. And so the first step in our journey was a hurdle by our own doing. And Andrew and Dean were generous enough to get us back on the next flight to Gisborne.
Was Andrew already up there?
Andrew was already up there.
Oh, shit.
You sort of brushed over the name of it. I mean, it's such a famous name now. Does one of you secretly know? Oh, actually, I came. You're saying it was kind of like a group thing, but was one of you like, well, it was actually me?
It was process of elimination. I like to think I added the musical element. We went through names like bass, melody, treble, rhythm. So we had a list of those names on the side, and then we were talking about obviously the vineyard setting, which seems quite token today about all these vineyard parties. But back in the day, there was just the Mission concert, which I grew up with in Napier, which was really contemporary, and it was for your parents, and it was, Beach Boys and Doobie Brothers, and it was really quite dated. And I remember going to those concerts saying, man, it'd be cool if we had our own heroes like Sublime or Pearl Jam, or, why do we have to listen to this wharirari music? So Rhythm and Vines was like, let's do something trendy that's young and cool for us. The Vines element sounds obvious now, but that was coupled with this rhythm, and Rhythm and Vines was born. And at the time, there was this burgeoning music scene across the country, mainly out of Wellington with the dub music and the horns. And there was this band called the WBC who ended up playing the first festival, and they had a great clip on TV with them in the vineyard playing with the horns. And we're like, that's exactly what we're trying to achieve. So they were booked. The Black Seeds were booked. And it was a time when, there was the Exponents and Dave Dobbin and a little bit of pop punk, Zed, and it was a pretty cheesy kind of scene, but these bands coming out of Wellington, and in the coming years, the Fat Freddy's Drops and
Isn't it Rhombus? Was that?
And Rhombus, yeah. Concord Dawn, Minwee. There was a great movement of independent music. No one really promoting it, so we were able to bundle up that whole scene over those first few years of Rhythm and Vines.
Just pause there. How old are you?
I was 21.
That's so cool. That's so cool to think, like, what were you doing at 21?
In America.
Yeah. I was just sinking trips in the Outback.
Keystone Light.
Yeah, exactly right. Not putting together a festival and a massive party like that. Amazing.
Yeah, thank you. We had that experience doing the Captain Cook nights, so a bit of a taste of promoting. So it was, putting posters up around town and booking bands and negotiating with the venue and getting writers, and I was loving that side of the industry. And so when it came to organising this party, we didn't know much about the bigger event management and getting consents, but we knew about getting people excited, and we knew what our vision was, and it was that blind optimism and young naivety that led us to, encouraging people like Dean Witters and my father Ross to help mentor us and help steer us in the right direction to kind of getting our dream off the ground.
Being personable, communicating and engaging with the community, like, it would be such a different set of skills to start this thing now in the age of social media. Like, this is pre-social media, so you're actually having to go and, like you say, talk to people.
Yep.
I'm just thinking about that as you're saying it. Like, it's such a different skill set, right?
Oh, there were some pretty crude marketing ideas we had when you think back now, because, yeah, you're right, it was the days before social media. So we had these long-winded, well, they weren't long-winded, they were quite specific emails getting people excited about Rhythm and Vines that were sent around the country. And it might have been before your time, but it was, when there's just like address after address.
Oh, yeah.
Forward. They mostly porn
They're
ones.
mostly porno ones. Yeah, that one that Tink sent?
Yeah. Keep getting it. Yeah.
So
I just remember opening it up in the labs at Waikato Uni and being like, oh, shit.
It would take a while to load as well. It would sort of slowly come through.
Like chocolate milkshake or something?
These are different emails.
So they were bouncing around New Zealand, and then we wrote a list of people in different parts of the country, at Massey University or at Auckland, and we'd send them a bunch of flyers to hand out around their campuses. And probably the most effective marketing was we got 30 odd people from different social groups around campus. We got them to Gardy's one night. We shouted a couple of crates. This is when crates were, I think they were $40 for a crate of Spates. Yeah. And Tom and I got up on the table and we told everyone about our vision. New Year's Gisborne, get your schoolmates, get your friends around uni, let's all go to Gisborne for this big hurrah. And we showed them the photos, and we were enthusiastic, and we had a vision, and I guess we were good at conveying it as well.
Is that pissed up you doing that?
Yeah,
like 21-year-old, full of piss and
I was thinking
vigor.
Like Dead Poet Society, like, oh, Captain, my Captain! Like, everyone's, I'm booking the tickets now! And then having to wait the next day to go down to the travel agent when it opened because there wasn't any internet shit then.
Or was that just you? Was that your personality?
Oh, yeah, we weren't. I mean, we weren't hammered, but it was a social time, wasn't it, 21? And, I mean, there was a lot of people saying, this is a pipe dream? Is this a myth? But you got to remember, these days, there wasn't that much to do for New Year's, and that was one of the reasons we put our hands up to start this thing, because people used to go to Sydney. There was the odd little scene in Taupo. There was those riots in Whangamata.
Oh, yeah.
But there was no central place for young Kiwis to go. So when we put our hands up and said, here's the vineyard, here's the bands, buy your tickets, people just jumped at it.
And how's the feeling the night before that first gig? Are you full of nerves? Did you get much sleep?
It was, yeah. Well, that's another part of the story. We had this hellish rain probably on the 29th of December, and all our friends and all the people had arrived in Gisborne, and it was honestly like a cyclone. People were bunkered down at different farmhouses and campgrounds, and word was getting around, like, was this thing going to even go ahead? And I remember Dean Witters wanted to pull it. He was saying, let's cancel. And Andrew and Tom and I were just so almost scared with, the social fallout of not being able to deliver this festival. We kind of bullied Dean and said, we're not cancelling, let's hold on. And sure enough, the next day the sun came out, we got the Lions Club in there with the wood chips, filled all the holes, the mud. It was just all hands on deck the night before to actually get the venue ready. And then sure enough, the day of the 31st, blue sky, magic. And you think back to those days where if life had taken a different turn and that rain had come in and we had cancelled, we wouldn't have the history and the magic that we have today. But we had a good run of fine weather. People got to experience everything about Gisborne, and Rhythm and Vines was able to flourish.
Was it as simple as the day after that success with the nice weather and it all went well, you're sitting back and you're thinking, that was pretty cool, we got to do that again?
Yeah, it was. And it probably wasn't as successful as we had thought. We had a cash bar, we had backpackers working, money went missing. Different expenses came in at the last minute, and when we cashed up after that first event, we were actually 20 grand in the hole. Wow. So that was a real kick in the guts for what Tom and I had thought was a really successful project, and but it gave us that encouragement to have another crack.
Who eats that 20k between uni students? Or did Dean?
Well, that was why we were great to have Dean funding us, but our name was associated with the debt, so we were, I guess, had
cost-related costs
to go through with it. Yeah. But then we took the next leap. So the next year we booked Salmonella Dub, and they were a pretty popular band, certainly in the South Island. But that was a sizable fee to commit them, and the risk just kept. We were kind of already in deep then, but the recipe and the concept was so good that we knew that everyone would come back the next year with a couple of friends in tow. And sure enough, year 2 we had 5,000 people, so it just showed that we were onto something special.
Did you go back to uni after year 1? So
year
1 finishes, 1st of January 2004, you wake up, everyone's feeling good, you go to the bakery, grab some pies, share some war stories. Think about moving back to the flat in March, I imagine, to start up O Week again.
Yep.
And then are you just studying but also thinking, fuck, how can we make this thing bigger and better? How do we build on the snowball? How do we make it?
Exactly. And I think that's when the law degree started to kind of get put aside, because I was leaving lectures to go and ring Red Bull or have coffees with Shapeshifter if they're in town, or and it's anyone that's had a wild idea and you get a bit of momentum, it's quite intoxicating. So but we also had the runs on the board. We could prove that we could pull off these events. Everyone had a ball, and we could we had collateral to show people, whether it be sponsors, and the next year we started to get Red Bull on board, and export was some of the first partners as well, and people started to believe in our vision, and things like that just snowball.
Do you deliberately use cricket analogy in the way you talk a lot of the time? Because I've picked it up.
I do.
You do, eh? Yeah, runs on the board.
Runs on the board, stay in your crease, and just take each ball as it comes.
Yeah, exactly. Waiheke Island's opening the batting for New Zealand summer was one of your Instagram posts. You definitely do, eh? You fucking knew it. I knew that. In this little group of you, you're becoming businessmen, right? You're 21, like you're learning all of these skills at once. Did you each have different strengths, or did you divide up the different parts of running the operation?
Well, Tom and I driving it, we probably had complementary skills. I was probably more music focused, dealing with bands, booking them, booking the production, getting the writers organised, thinking about the flow of the music. Tom is a really good people's person. He's very creative, and he was more a marketer, I guess, as well. And he was another enthusiastic salesman to encourage all our friends to join us. Andrew's very astute. He's very practical. He could work the land. He could work his dad and be that Gisborne liaison. So between the three of us, we did have quite a unique skill set. But as we grew, we soon learned we needed those event managers, to help us. And we had a local lady come on board in the first few years to help, with that detail and, those critical paths and bringing the actual pipeline of delivery together. But, even to this day, we've got a really wide team of different skill sets that all add to the recipe. So it's certainly not just one person that pulls it together.
Firefest is an amazing documentary to watch back as an event person.
Yep.
Did you watch that back and think back to the first few years of R&V and go, man, that was... I didn't have to suck dick for water, but I was close to those kind of situations.
Well, they had a great idea. It's still a fantastic idea. That vision they were selling was shit. I'd buy a ticket. But the implementation, and they had a bit of bad luck as well. Like we had good luck. We had good weather. We had good momentum. We were able to get off the ground that first year, and the next year we had good luck. And so I think we had a different journey from them, but I think they were too careless. They took too big a risk. A lot of ego involved as well. They weren't realistic, and as a result, their concept didn't perform.
But do you look back now at some of those and think, man, we were pretty cowboy when we were starting out in terms of what we were doing, or was it always a pretty tight operation because of the support that you brought in from outside?
Oh no, we lots of holes and lots of learnings. We ran out of water one year.
Someone had to get suckered.
We had glass bottles instead of cans, and there was people getting cut. We've had power cuts. Nothing in events is ever certain, is it? So it's just mitigating those risks and having good people around you to help deliver these big projects. And it's still, in every big project today, look at FIFA, look at, other big events in this country. There's, a lot of good minds working on these things to ensure that, that nothing slips through the gap.
Do you want to connect this timeline up for me? When you had the first gig to when you went full-time, that was your full-time job. And in the middle there, were you a lawyer in Levin? In the notes, he was a lawyer in Levin for a little bit. Where did that come into play?
So my mother's family's from Levin, and my uncle is an accountant there, and he got me some work experience. And I think my parents they could see my passion for this project, and they were certainly very supportive, but, they thought, make sure you get a bit of backing for your career. So I did some work experience in my university holidays at a firm in Levin. And they actually, after my profs, I did my bar exam in Wellington, they actually gave me a job, and I considered it. Didn't really want to live in Levin, but I did like the idea of getting some legal experience, but travel was calling, so I booked a ticket to the US and to Europe, and that's when a bit of a gap year. I got to see some leading festivals in the UK, Ziggit, V Festival, and these projects or these festivals and lifestyles were just huge news, and we had nothing like that in New Zealand, and that's gave me the confidence to say maybe Rhythm and Vines could become that for New Zealand. It could be our festival that everyone talks about and everyone gets excited about and breaks all these bands. And we had the bones, we had the vision, we had the brand, we had a little bit of a following. So I came back from that gap year OE with a whole new swing in my step to say, put the legal career aside, let's go hundies on this idea. And it's not going to be easy, but every day if you can do a little bit more hustle or have that extra coffee or get that one more bit of advice that could help build the project, then it's a lot more productive than being a lawyer on the clock.
And I guess we're talking 22, 23, 24. You've got no real responsibilities. You don't need a lot of money. So it's kind of like you can live off the smell of an oily rag and just invest whatever you do have into the business, right?
Yeah. And it was a confusing time. Other friends were getting more structured lifestyles with legal careers or working for banks. And, I think my parents and peer group were a little bit confused about what I was trying to do. But I think you do need a couple of years out of the loop to get these ideas off the ground. And it would be going to Sydney and meeting the touring agents over there and working out how we can, be part of their touring schedule, or it would be, being down in Gisborne on site, working out how we're going to set up the camping, or meeting with council, or having a coffee in Ponsonby with, Shapeshifter. Or so every day you've got to work on your passion and be 100% committed. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Is this so? When did you stake a claim in the ground that I am full time in this? Was it 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years?
Well, I've always been full-time commitment at it, but it was probably moved to Auckland, probably into the fourth year. So we had a couple of years at university and then a gap year, and then I was like, I really got to commit to this. So moved to Auckland and started building a team to help turn this into a full-time business.